on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today's going to be one of my last videos talking about 2024. I'm kind of like constantly doing a bunch of ranking videos right now, and I promise I'm going to slow down on that eventually. But today I kind of wanted to come on here and talk about, in my opinion, 5 of the most underrated movies of last year. I feel like a lot of people have officially put out their rankings for their top 10s, and there are a couple of movies that I think are noticeably missing from some of these people's top 10s, and there's movies I feel like don't get enough credit, or potentially I haven't heard enough people praising. So I'm just going to come on here and talk about 5 movies that I really, really loved, and just kind of sharing with you why I think that more people should know about them and watch them. Alrighty, so I'm going to start off by talking about, personally, one of my favorite movies that released this year. When I did my video ranking the 80 movies that I had seen in the year 2024, this was at the very, very top of my list, right behind Dune Part 2. We have the movie Snack Shack. This is a movie that I absolutely love to death. This movie was one that, if I'm being totally honest, I'm going to tell you guys the story of why I went to go see this movie, because I think it is kind of like stupid. And part of the reason why I really enjoyed this movie is because I had no idea what to expect. I went into it completely blind. But last year, not 2024, but 2023, there were quite a few comedies that came out that a lot of people like really raved about. I think that the movie Bottoms was a huge one that a lot of people were like, oh my god, this movie was absolutely incredible. The movie Theater Camp, and there's just a bunch of movies similar along those lines that were raunchy comedies, that were rated R comedies that came out just in the middle of March. And I think I say March, just spring season in general, had a bunch of random rated R comedies that came out that a lot of people were raving about, a lot of people were talking about. And something that I thought was really interesting about it was these are all movies that like no one had heard of until people started making reviews of them, and a lot of people were sharing online how much they love this movie, and they kind of instantly became like cult classics in a sense. And when I was looking for random movies to watch, and I believe it was March when this movie came out, I just randomly saw this one. I had no idea what it was, but I saw that it was rated R, and I saw that it was listed as a comedy, and I was like, you know what? If this ends up being really, really good, and a bunch of people end up going and seeing this movie, and a bunch of people start raving about this movie online, I'm gonna make my review of it as soon as possible so that when this movie blows up, potentially in like a week or two from now, a lot of people will see my video and they will, you know, be like, oh my god, this guy saw this movie right away and he thought that it was really good, so like this guy's really cool. And I kind of selfishly literally was doing it for content. I'm not the kind of person who goes out and watch movies specifically for content. I know that that's weird to say when my channel is literally revolving around movies. I wouldn't go watch a movie that I don't think I'm going to enjoy, and this was one of the few times last year that I went to watch this movie strictly so I could make a video of it, and I was baffled by how much I loved this movie. I think that the coming of age elements of it are absolutely incredible. I think that the best friend dynamics between these two guys who have been best friends for their entire lives is so interesting. I think that Gabriel LaBelle is absolutely incredible in this. And I just think that overall, this movie has so much to say. It's a movie that at face value is just two dumb boys being young, making a bunch of mistakes, and just having a really good time during the summer. And then there's also some subplots with the main character is super socially awkward. He doesn't know how to stand up for himself. He has a best friend that he loves, and like I said, they've been friends their entire lives, and they have this really tight connection, but also he doesn't know how to tell his best friend, you know, hey, back off a little bit, and he doesn't know how to set boundaries. He's having a lot of emotional conflicts with his best friend because this girl kind of comes between them, and he's also the kind of person where, like, he's saving up a bunch of money, setting up himself for the future. He's really worried about what he's going to be doing in the future, whereas his other friend is a very live in the moment, we're young, let's have fun, let's make some mistakes. And I like the way that they show the duality of that. There's like the one friend who's very straightforward, he's somebody who's good in school, he's somebody who has his entire future planned out, and then there's Gabriel LaBelle's character, who's somebody who clearly hasn't came from as much money, doesn't necessarily have parents who are supporting him as much, and he just wants to go out and have fun because that's all he knows. That's all he knows. He's like, this is summer, we're kids, we should go have a blast, it doesn't matter what's going on in our lives. And I think that they do a really good job of showcasing the argument for why it's important to live in the moment, and also why it's important to plan for the future. And they end up having one of the main character's close friends, who he kind of views as an older brother figure, passing away at the end of this movie. And that was something that caught me so off guard that, like I said, I went to see this because I'm like, it's rated R, it's a comedy, this is going to be incredible. When that scene happened, it broke me so emotionally. It was so unexpected, and I absolutely loved it. I think that this movie was very similar to movies like Perks of Being a Wallflower, where it shows like young people how, you know, they don't know how if they ever fit in. They feel like they're never going to fit in. They are trying to join, you know, a group of people and just wanting to like feel like they're a part of something. And then that beauty of having to live life because one of your best friends can't. You know what I mean? In Perks of Being a Wallflower, the main character, his best friend, committed, I'm not going to say that word because I don't want this video to get taken down, but he is no longer with us. And so he kind of tries to live on because of his best friend. And I think that they kind of set this up so that the main character in this movie can have a very similar story. And he's trying to live for his best friend. Together, they were saving up for a trip together. And I think it's implied at the end of the movie that he's planning on saving up and still going on that trip to kind of honor his legacy. And I think that it's a very, very beautiful movie that I did not expect to get this invested in, and I absolutely love it. I've seen it about 3 times, and every single time I still cry. I really loved it. I think that the comedy is phenomenal, and I think that overall the period piece, so well done. Alrighty, and then the next one, I feel like a lot of people actually have had this relatively high on their list, but I still think like not enough people are giving this movie enough praise. I have the movie Monkey Man starring Dev Patel. I think that this movie is one of the best action movies we've gotten in the 20th century. 21st century. Sorry, I forgot what century we're in. That's pretty bad. I've only been alive during 1 century. But that being said, I feel like this is a movie that is very comparable to John Wick. I feel like the John Wick franchise is constantly being praised as, like the greatest action series ever. A lot of people are constantly talking about, John Wick 4 being one of the greatest action movies of all time. And I feel like this is a movie that arguably could be in that similar category. I feel like the revenge aspects of it are absolutely incredible. I've said this in every single video I've made talking about the Monkey Man. I feel like the midpoint of this movie is one of the best midpoints of a movie I have ever seen ever. He hits rock bottom in the most quite literal way possible, and the way he kind of has to rise to the occasion of being the Monkey Man is incredible. I like the way that they tied in with some like folklores. I love the really deep, dark backstory and the way that they're slowly building towards it the entire movie instead of just like starting off with a flashback sequence that shows everything. I like the fact that there's so much personal stakes in this movie. I think that when you have a movie like this where you have a character like Dev Patel's character who's trying to overthrow a corrupt government, it's always like, okay, well, yeah, we're going to hate the corrupt government because they're corrupt and they've done terrible things to a lot of different people. He has personal stakes. There's a specific person who killed his mother and he wants to get revenge on that specific person. And I love how personal they make this movie. The stakes are incredibly huge. The action sequences are incredibly vibrant and extremely well choreographed. And I just loved how innovative this movie was. The cinematography is absolutely incredible. The action sequences are phenomenal. And Dev Patel's acting in this is so incredible. I loved this movie to death. Now, going from that movie to another movie that I feel like some people who have seen it have praised this movie, but I know a lot of people who still have not seen it. And if you have a subscription to Netflix, go watch this movie right now. I'm not going to tell you anything about it until you watch this movie. It's What's Inside. Absolutely incredible movie. I've avoided spoilers every single time I've ever talked about it, but now I'm going to issue a spoiler warning. We're going to dive deep into this movie because I absolutely loved it, and I think it is one of the coolest movies that was made in a really long time. For people who do not know, there's a game called Werewolf, right? And if you don't know how that game works, essentially there's one person who's kind of the game manager and they know what everybody's cards are and what their positions are. And what they'll do is they'll say, okay, everybody close your eyes. We're going to go to sleep for the night. And then they'll go through the progressions of each of the different characters. Certain character cards have certain actions that they do during the nighttime. So the first thing will be, hey, werewolves, wake up. Choose one person you would like to kill. They'd kill whatever person they end up killing off. And then the next one would be like, okay, the insomniac, what are you going to do? The village idiot, what are you going to do? And they go through the entire night completely anonymously doing whatever tasks they do. And then morning comes, the DM will say, okay, the werewolves decided to kill off so-and-so. And then there's just a giant discussion to figure out who they think the werewolf might potentially be. And this movie took a concept as simple as that, very popular party game, something that an insane amount of people probably know and have played. And we're like, what if we did a little twist on that? But instead of them just like, trying to figure out who the werewolf is, there's going to be an even bigger twist. They're going to switch bodies. And they need to figure out who's in whose bodies. And I think that is an insanely cool concept. I feel like one of the only issues that this movie suffers from is we're thrown into this story relatively quickly. We have about like 15 minutes to quickly learn all of the characters' names. They give us a flashback sequence so we kind of understand how these people met and why they're friends still to this day. And then from there, they immediately dive into the game, which I feel like works for the most part because once you see the different people in their different bodies, and the way that they decide to edit this is really interesting because they'll like change the lighting and you'll see who's actually in that body. And I feel like a movie like this doesn't work unless you have a bunch of actors who work incredibly well together and they have incredible body language. They do a really good job of like when this person is actually in that person's body is acting how this person would have been acting. And it is so well done. It is absolutely incredible. The editing alone in this movie, I feel like deserves some kind of recognition because it was phenomenal. And I love the overall story of just trying to figure out, okay, this person might be me. That's the person who's in my body, and stuff like that is really interesting. And the fact that they decided to take this concept, which was already pretty cool, and I feel like you could have made an entire movie about just this, they flip it on its head and have a couple of people die while they're in the wrong bodies. And then they have to deal with this dilemma of, okay, well, some people can go back into their regular bodies, but the other people, they can't go back into their regular bodies because their regular bodies are now dead. So now the people who can't go back into their own bodies are like, well, why is it fair that I have to give my body up? Like, why can't I stay in this new body that I'm in? Because I'd rather stay in this body and then go into the other body that you're trying to send me into. And it creates such an interesting conflict that I don't think I've ever seen as interesting of a conflict in a movie ever. I feel like the discussion around this movie is so captivating, and I think that this movie is able to just completely screw with your mind in a way that no movie has ever screwed with my mind in the past. And I like the fact that that's a huge twist, and they just kind of keep coming with twist after twist after twist. This movie feels like a reality TV show. It feels like an incredible comedy. It feels like a thriller, and I loved everything that they did with this movie. It is so good. It is so captivating. Like I said, if you have not seen it, it is on Netflix. Go watch it right now. It is incredible. And now another streaming movie. I am a huge fan of rom-coms, so I will always be biased towards rom-coms. I haven't seen anybody talk about this movie at all since the week or two that it came out. The movie Greatest Hits. This is another movie that, for the most part, like I said, I watch movies for myself, but David Cornsweet was in this movie, and he's going to be playing Superman, and I'm a super big superhero person, right? Like, those are some of my favorite videos to make, are when I get to talk about superheroes, because I know a lot about the comics, I know a lot about the origin stories, I know a lot about more than just what you see on the screen. So specifically, superhero media means a lot to me. So when I found out David Cornsweet was going to be in this movie, I was like, you know what? I haven't seen him in anything yet. Let's go ahead and watch this. And I fell in love with this entire cast, the entire concept. It's absolutely incredible. Did I say the name of it? The Greatest Hits on Hulu. Absolutely freaking incredible. The main actress, Lucy Boynton, incredible chemistry with everybody. This is a very interesting rom-com in this fact that the main character has multiple love interests, but it's not a love triangle in any way. So for people who do not know, the overall concept of this movie is Lucy Boynton's character is someone who goes to music festivals. She loves raving. She loves going to music. Music is something that she's always gone to. It's an outlet for her. She goes to record shops all the time. Her best friend's a DJ, and she loves music, right? And something that happens towards the relatively beginning of this movie is her boyfriend passes away, right? A couple of months go by, she's still grieving, but she's came to the realization that whenever she listens to specific songs, she goes back in time, and she's literally reliving certain moments of her life, and she's actually able to make changes about these specific things that she's doing in her life. So a couple of times in the beginning of the movie, she'll be wearing headphones, and she's trying to avoid listening to music because music will just randomly make her go back in time, and she can't really control it. And it's a very interesting concept. Like, first of all, I think any movie that deals with time travel is really interesting, but the way that they specifically use it in here is cool because songs are typically 3 minutes long, right? And in this movie, when she goes back in time, she only has very short windows to do changes and to make different things that she plans on doing. And for the majority of the first half of this movie, she's looking for a specific song because what she wants to do is go back to the first time she ever met her boyfriend and leave him or never meet him in the first place so that way he can live. And I think that that's a very incredible story. And while she's doing this in present day, she meets a guy. She kind of falls in love. They kind of hit it off. They have a lot of relationships. And it kind of is like the invisible string theory where, like, they realize together that they have similar memories. They've been in the same places at the same time. They've had similar experiences. They've gone to the same record shops. They've gone to the same antique shops and stuff like that. And I think that it is incredibly, incredibly cool that they were able to kind of show the invisible string theory in a movie and do it this well. And by the end of the movie, she ends up kind of falling in love with this guy, but she still needs to go back in time and make sure that her old boyfriend lives. And because she does that, she kind of sacrifices this new relationship that she has in current day. And whenever she does that, they actually end up having this movie end with them meeting organically and naturally, the two people who are in love in present day. it's incredible. It's really good. I loved everything that they did with this movie. If you have not seen it, once again, on Hulu, absolutely incredible. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Alrighty, and the last movie that I wanted to talk about, this was a big theatrically released movie, which I think did not do very successful in the box office, which is crazy to me because of how good this movie was. We have the movie Transformers 1. One of the main reasons I wanted to talk about this movie is because currently there's a lot of Oscar buzz and stuff going on. There's the Golden Globes were just last night, the day that I'm recording this, and it's been a really, really big year for animated movies. I feel like the Lord of the Rings getting their anime was really cool. I feel like Inside Out 2 broke records, I believe, for certain box office achievements, which was absolutely cool. Moana 2 shocked a lot of people with how well it did in the box office. Once again, Despicable Me did incredible in the box office. There was just a lot of really big animated movies that came out this year, and I feel like one that kind of just flew under the radar was this Transformers 1 movie. I was pretty confident at the beginning of the year that this movie was going to hit, and it did. It was really cool. I feel like they have a couple of moments that are on par with the leap of faith scene in the original Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is constantly being argued as one of the top 5 animated movies of all time. And I feel like this movie doesn't necessarily hit the mark of like one of the top 5 of all time, but I definitely think that this is one of the top 3 animated movies that have came out this year, and a lot of people aren't even talking about it. So for me personally, things that I want to address about this movie that I think are incredible. For one, obviously the comedic elements are fantastic. You get Keegan-Michael Key in literally anything, it's going to be absolutely incredible. I think that his performance as Bumblebee was fantastic. I also love Brian Tyree Henry as Megatron. He absolutely kills it. His vocal work is incredible. His monologue that he has about how we shouldn't let these oppressive leaders just get away scotch-free is incredible. The way that he completely turns and it goes completely full evil is awesome. I absolutely love it to death. The fact that he kind of wants to replace this corrupt government, and the way that he's doing it and the way that he wants to go about doing it is just going to create a cycle, and they're going to become the oppressed government. Oppressive government? Is that a word? We're going to pretend like that's a word. And the whole concept with like these two people who have been best friends their entire lives having to clash with each other because one of them is going to be hungry for power, which is Megatron, and he wants to become the new leader of this, world, and he wants to keep things kind of going in a similar direction. Like, he doesn't want the minor bots to be completely powerless, but he also is okay with there being certain factions, whereas Optimus Prime on the other side is like, no, we've been oppressed our entire lives. We're not going to let oppression continue going. It doesn't matter that it's not going to directly affect us. It's going to affect a lot of people, and that's not right. We're against that. It's not good. We don't appreciate it. And I just like the fact that this is a movie that, for the most part, is appropriate for kids. I'm pretty sure it's rated PG, and it deals with oppressive governments. It deals with tyranny. It deals with slavery. It deals with a lot of really, really dark, deep concepts. And this is in a day and age where I'm constantly giving crap to a lot of animated studios because they're making little kids movies that are not going to age well. Like, something that I like personally about the movies that I grew up with is I could rewatch them today. They're still as impactful. They're still as important. They're teaching a very valuable lesson. But a lot of movies nowadays, like the movie Wish and like pretty much any Illumination movie that ever comes out, they're just targeted for little kids, and they're going to make little kids laugh. And eventually little kids are going to come back and they're going to watch some of their old favorite movies and be like, wow, these movies sucked. And I think that that's heartbreaking. Like, me personally, I can go back and rewatch pretty much any animated movie that came out the first like 5 or 6 years that I was alive. All of them are still great. All of them still live up. They all have important messages. They have incredible stories. They have great animation. Whereas nowadays, they don't really care as much because they're like, this is for kids. It doesn't need to be great. And then you get a movie like this, where they're teaching such a valuable lesson about how you need to stand up for yourself. And they have incredible action sequences, they have incredible visuals, they have incredible comedic scenes, and I think that overall this movie is just pretty damn good. Like, this is, in my opinion, one of the top 10, 15 movies that come out this year. That might be a little high. I'm a huge fan of animation, so like, I'm very quick to put animated movies up higher on my list. I love this movie. I think it doesn't get talked about enough. I really enjoyed it. And I really appreciate the fact that they gave us the origin story, because as somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about Transformers but love to just watch them fight, and I love the Universal ride for Transformers, it was cool kind of understanding where they came from a little bit more. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. And if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.